So I'll tell you my story with the COVID-19 that springs to mind, because I'm going to enter the contest as well. So I spent, the story started when I was looking at these underground videos on Instagram of what was going on in China, and I saw this guy with like a red armband doing kung fu and trying to get somebody not to cross the boundary into his neighborhood, because when the virus just hit, and this imprinted in my mind that this guy was trying to keep people out of his neighborhood that weren't from out there. When the quarantine was new, nobody knew who had it, who didn't have it in China. And I saw these types of videos coming out of there, and people getting sealed in their buildings and things like that. I saw this was happening, and then I saw it was hitting Italy, and I looked at the website, the John Hopkins website, and I saw it was finally here in the United States, and I knew that this would happen in the United States as well, to a certain degree. And I felt like I was the only person in the country that knew that the country was going to be locked down. So I started getting all the alcohol and getting all the supplies and getting my business ready, and people looked at me like I was insane for a while. And I was doing it on Instagram, but I knew I was right, so I let them think that I was insane, and then when it would be over, they would think that I was right. And that is what happened indeed, because now it's already June 11th. People came out of the lockdown, and they're like, "Oh, Max, they're apologizing to me," because they were laughing at me. But, the scary part was, it wasn't the scary part, it was just, this tense part. When the virus was just trying to take hold, and people were still saying, "Oh, it's the flu," or "It's this," or "It's that," and the lockdown was kind of not starting yet, and just sitting there in the anxiety of waiting for it to lock down and running everywhere with a mask and no one's wearing it. And then finally the moment came when they said, "You know what, we're locking down, restaurants close up, everything close up, everybody go home." And these sirens, all I could remember is listening and hearing the sirens all night long, carrying people to the hospital. We had like 1,000 people a day dying here in New York, and it was just sirens all day long, and then eventually it did calm down, and just going through that experience was the most memorable aspect of it. Of course, I was fully prepared, and then when it hit, I had my suits and my gloves and my things like that. I didn't know how bad it was going to be, or how mild or what have you. It was a little bit better than I thought, and we were able to. I was able to go through it without too much trouble because I was prepared. But just that whole experience was from just seeing it on Instagram of the guy doing kung fu and keeping people out of his neighborhood to having the lockdown finally being initiated here in New York was such a journey. And then coming off the lockdown now, and now we're sitting here, and it might be a second wave or what have you, but nothing will match that first shock of that old world that we were living in, that everybody wanted to come back to, and that just disappeared. That's my story right there.